This story takes place in a time when monsters spread across the western continent. In fear, people built castles, moats, and trained their warriors. However, humans were still no match for them, until one day a traveler arrived and changed their fate. In the present day, we see Princess Sally of the Kingdom of Alarak ordering the royal guards to stop chasing her. She wants to explore the outside world and go on a journey. At that moment, she meets a traveler and asks him to lie to the guards about her whereabouts, to which he agrees. The guards think the stranger is just a traveler, so they tell him to be careful out there. Then, he heads in the wrong direction that he gave them. Once the guards are gone, Sally emerges from the bushes and introduces herself to her new friend. He is a traveler named Mikoto, and she simply calls herself Sail. She then invites him to eat her favorite dessert, and the restaurant owners laugh at her for causing yet another problem. She takes him for a walk around the market and later invites him to dinner at the palace, revealing that she is a princess. In return, she asks him to tell her more about his travels, making it clear that she wants to leave her boring kingdom and travel the world. Mikoto points out that her kingdom is beautiful and peaceful, and anyone would be happy to settle there. The princess agrees but hates the fact that her life revolves around the kingdom, leaving her with nothing else to do. She bids him goodnight and leaves the hall. Outside the city walls, two monsters are watching the palace. The next day, Sally enters Mikoto's room and is surprised to find him even thinner and more slender than her. But what shocks her most is discovering that Mikoto is actually a boy. As they walk around the castle grounds, Mikoto shares his travel stories with Sally, and she jokingly comments that if someone as thin and fragile as he can travel, she should be able to do it too. Sally asks Mikoto to take her with him, but her tone changes when he warns her about the dangers of the outside world, including the possibility of abandonment, death, and worse things that often happen to women. Despite this, he asks if she still wants to join him. Sally is surprised, and Mikoto clarifies that he was joking, he would never abandon her, but death can come at any moment for anyone. Inside the castle, Sally's father, the king, meets with a stranger who reveals himself to be a monster named Yak. The monster demands 30 bodies per month as tribute to spare the king from slaughter. When a knight intervenes, the monster kills him, stating that this man's sacrifice does not count toward the 30 sacrifices he demands. After leaving the king's presence, the monster encounters Mikoto in the courtyard with the princess. He starts to worry and decides to cancel his slaughter plan. Mikoto senses the monster's presence and gives a crooked smile, tracking him with his gaze without Sally noticing. Inside the castle, there is chaos, as everyone debates how to deal with this new threat. The king approaches Sally and advises her to embark on her journey, realizing the danger of her staying. Suddenly, a loud noise echoes through the air and Sally runs outside to investigate. Thus, she ends up seeing the monsters for the first time. In the field, a group of ogres led by Mok is approached by Yak. He informs Mok that their plan is wrong because the one who destroyed the country is inside the castle. Mikoto approaches the ogres, catching Mok's attention, who is excited at the prospect of killing him. Sally intervenes, asking Mikoto to leave immediately. He ignores her and turns his attention to Mok, introducing himself, and then Mok attacks with a punch. Mikoto cuts off his hand, activates his peach-colored eyes, and ties a headband with a peach logo on his forehead. He then cuts Mok's eyes. It is revealed that Mikoto is from another land and that he kills monsters for pleasure. Mikoto slaughters the entire horde of ogres in a bloodthirsty frenzy and approaches the bleeding Mok. Mok asks Mikoto who he is, and Mikoto replies that he is a defenseless traveler who hunts monsters. With that, he kills his enemy, and at the gate, we see Sally feeling indebted to Mikoto because he saved her kingdom, even though everything was done in a terrifying way. Suddenly, a dog appears and tells the boy that it is time to leave. Sally begs him to stay and runs after him, but she is stopped by the grotesque sight in front of her. The boy keeps walking and Sally calls his name. At that moment, she realizes that this boy left a month ago and she hasn't stopped thinking about him since. She then decides to tell her father that she is going on an adventure. She cuts her hair as a way of showing that she is serious, telling her father that she no longer wants to be just a princess. To her surprise, her father supports her decision. The king asks if she has a plan, and she replies that she will figure it out as she travels. She says goodbye to her father and sets off on her journey, excited to start her new adventure. During her travels, Sally comes across a fainted rabbit in the forest. Sally notes that she has never seen anything like it before. She quickly abandons the rabbit to avoid trouble, but when she hears the creature's stomach growling, she finds herself unable to ignore it. She takes a carrot from her bag and offers it to the creature as food. At that moment, the rabbit introduces herself as Frau, a female rabbit. Sally notes that this is the first time she has seen a demi-human. She then shows the rabbit a sketch of Mikoto, asking if she has seen the boy. However, the creature has never seen him. Frau thanks Sally for the delicious food, and against Sally's will, Frau begins to follow her, as it is dangerous to travel alone. The two eventually reach a nearby village, where they encounter a villager who is not welcoming to demi-humans. He tells Frau to leave because they cannot allow a demi-human into the village. At the same time, he welcomes Sally. After a brief flashback of Mikoto, she decides to leave with Frau. Later, Sally gives Frau her raincoat to hide her appearance, and the two re-enter the village in hopes of finding food and shelter. They meet the village elder, who welcomes them as travelers. Seeing some carrots, Frau can't contain her excitement and reveals herself. However, the elder seems understanding and is not bothered by her appearance. He offers them a place to rest in his mansion and invites them to dinner that night. The two dine with the Lord, who also offers them his house to spend the night. At the end of the night, as the Lord leads Sally to her room, he tells her that his region has been damaged by several monsters that also killed many people. Fortunately, a lone traveler defeated the monsters, saving them from being completely annihilated. Sally recognizes that this traveler must be Mikoto and asks about his whereabouts, but the man has no idea where he is. Upon hearing this, Sally asks why he allowed Frau into the village. He says that, in the end, demi-humans are no different from regular demons. However, to everyone, demi-humans and ogres are the enemies of humanity, so it's normal to fear and hold prejudice against them. Sally wakes up to a loud bang and discovers that a demon has attacked the village. She approaches the ogre and instantly freezes in fear, realizing she is in danger. Frau comes to her rescue and kills the ogre with 2 kicks. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, a group of horsemen is watching the events in the village. Sally thanks Frau for saving her, while the villagers remain terrified of Frau due to her immense power. The village elder asks them to leave, but before going, Frau thanks him for the carrot, surprising everyone. As they leave the village, they are surrounded and captured by the Knights of Rindal. The two end up imprisoned in a cell, but the commander of the Knights, Hulk, frees them and introduces himself as the commander of the Royal Knights Regiment. Princess Sally says it was foolish to imprison them because she's just traveling with a good-hearted bunny who only wants carrots. The commander clarifies that Frau also represents a threat due to her strength. However, after seeing Frau save Sally and show respect to the villagers, he completely changes his mind. He decides to free them, but not before giving in to their desire to receive food. They walk through the market to have lunch. Meanwhile, outside the city, 2 monsters named Mech and Set are planning to wreak havoc on the land. Mech uses her ogre explosion and destroys the kingdom's walls. Due to the excessive use of her power, she assumes a childlike form, and while she recovers her strength, Set enters the walls and immediately annihilates the guards. Hulk tells Sally that they should run, but she continues to approach the ogre, apparently out of her senses. Frau comes to her aid, kicking Set. She then tells Sally to run as fast as possible, but Sally refuses to leave her behind. Hulk drags Sally away, leaving Frau to face the massive ogre. The rabbit promises to protect Sally because she treated her with kindness, and to the ogre, this fight seems fun. Nearby, while Hulk is busy evacuating people, he fails to notice that Sally has disappeared. Meanwhile, Frau and the ogre continue fighting. During the battle, Set grabs Frau and throws her into the air, and as she falls, Sally, with tears in her eyes, calls out to her. This gives Frau renewed strength, and she fights the ogre again. Frau is now gravely injured, and Sally joins her. Seeing them together, the ogre decides to finish them both. But suddenly, Sally feels a warmth, and her eyes turn red. In an instant, she cuts off the ogre's hand, just like Mikoto. Her eyes turn peach-colored, and she feels an uncontrollable urge to kill others. Meanwhile, Mech is sitting under a large tree, thinking that Set is enjoying the slaughter of humans. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appears behind the tree and asks why she is upset. Surprised by the unexpected company and unable to sense another presence, she sees this as a way to pass the time while waiting for her companion and tries to activate her powers. However, to her shock, the tree is effortlessly cut down. The stranger, revealed to be Mikoto, expresses a desire to join the fun and asks if the previous explosion was her doing. He then mentions that he wouldn't enjoy killing her because she's regenerating her powers and suggests they talk a bit until her power returns. Meanwhile, Set laughs after finally finding someone worthy of fighting. Sally, still in her powerful state, easily blocks the ogre's attack, and he starts wondering what kind of monster she is. On the other hand, Mech asks Mikoto if he is the famous ogre slayer, the traveler everyone is talking about. He is impressed that she has heard of him and asks why they invade the city and kill humans. Mech responds that humans destroyed the natural world which other species need to survive, all to build their castles. She considers them the enemies of her species. Mikoto mocks her for her love of nature, but points out that, deep down, she just wants revenge on those who stole their lands. However, he also tells her that she wouldn't stop killing humans even if they suddenly began caring for nature. After hearing this, Mech declares that the 5 minutes have passed. She calls Mikoto dangerous and is determined to finish him off once and for all. He laughs and activates his peach-colored eyes, telling her she can try. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom, Set also tells Sally that she is dangerous and starts using his ogre cannon against the princess. Mech hears the explosion and is momentarily distracted, and Mikoto takes this chance to attack, telling the girl to focus on the fight. He notices that his opponent is using magic and is impressed by her technique. Seeing him determined to fight her, Mech asks if he is not going to save the humans that her companion is currently annihilating. Mikoto clarifies that his motivation is not to save the humans but to kill monsters. Back in the kingdom, as the dust settles, Set is shocked that Sally managed to survive. She then unsheathes her sword and cuts her enemy down, defeating him, but then she faints. Mikoto tells Mech to use her ogre cannon on him, the most powerful shot she can manage, and promises not to dodge. To convince her, he even wounds his own leg with his katana, shocking the girl. Insulted, she uses the cannon, but as expected, the boy survives the attack. Now, in his child form, Mikoto pushes her to the ground and points his sword at her, intending to kill her. Mech asks for his name, and he introduces himself, saying he is a sworn enemy of ogres. He then stabs her eye and cuts off her horn, revealing that they are the source of her ogre powers. At that moment, Mikoto's talking dog appears, asking why he didn't kill her. Mikoto explains that without her powers, she is no different from a human, and that this is a way to make this ogre live as a human, feeling what they feel. However, the dog disagrees and says that Mikoto pities the girl because he sees himself in her. The dog also points out that Mikoto already sensed Sally's presence in the city and asks if he is going to see her. However, Mikoto refuses to see the princess, whom he calls his soulmate. They leave the city, and as the sun sets, a mysterious figure appears, saying they have found the person they were looking for. Meanwhile, Sally wakes up from her injuries and sees Frau standing beside her. Her memory is still hazy, so she does not remember what happened in the city. Hulk appears, telling her that she defeated the ogre. He then gives her the sword, confirming that she killed the ogre. He asks them to follow him, and they arrive at a cell, shocking them. They think they will be imprisoned again, but Hulk explains that this is not the case, and shows them a girl sleeping in a cell. He tells them that she is the ogre who destroyed the city wall. However, Sally says that the girl just looks like an ordinary human to her. Hulk explains that monsters can take on human appearances and reveals that this girl will likely be executed when she wakes up. However, he thinks that is too cruel, so he wants her to wake up so they can hear her side of the story. Sally praises the man for his decision and offers to stay in the cell to be there when the girl wakes up. When the commander leaves, Frau tells Sally that the girl is pretending to be asleep. Sally asks Mech if she remembers anything, but Mech tells her she is an ogre and tries to attack Frau, but she is too weak to do so. Seeing her weak attempts, Sally ends up liking Mech and calls her an adorable little creature. Mech realizes that her power is gone, thanks to Mikoto. Upon hearing Mikoto's name, Sally finally believes that Mech is an ogre and demands that she tell her what happened. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, an ogre kills its own kind and heads toward the city. Back in the cell, Sally is happy to hear that Mikoto is possibly coming and plans to go after him. She promises Mech that she won't tell anyone that she is an ogre, all to ensure her safety. However, now that her powers are gone, the ogre would rather die, but this bothers Sally, so she orders Frau to help them escape. Meanwhile, a guard informs Hulk that the prisoner has escaped, and that Sally and Frau helped in the escape. As they are fleeing the guards, Hulk appears, refusing to let them go. Frau kicks the commander out of the way, and they continue running quickly. Then, as the guard hands Hulk the reins of his horse, the entire kingdom is suddenly destroyed, which completely shocks everyone. Mech is surprised to see Soman, the great ogre responsible for the destruction of the entire city. He mocks Mech, saying he doesn't understand why creating a single kingdom is so difficult for her. Seeing her without a horn, the ogre calls her human and insists that she must die with dignity now. She submits to his command, ready to offer her life, but Sally intervenes, refusing to allow her sacrifice. However, now that her power is not activated, she asks Frau what to do. The rabbit encourages her to fight, noting that she defeated the ogre who looked like Leoncio. Hearing this, Soman begins to attack, eager to see her power. However, the voice of a man named Suag telepathically stops the ogre from attacking, ordering him to remove Sally from his list of targets. Meanwhile, Suag can be seen speaking from an abandoned church, telling Soman to return and retreat immediately. The great ogre leaves the humans, following the orders of his superior. As the sun sets, Sally is relieved that they have been spared. She then remembers Hulk and goes to check on the man. She brings him back to reality, saying that they are in a terrible situation right now because they have no supplies. She tells him to pull himself together because right now they need to survive first. Realizing she is right, Hulk regains his composure, but he is still too confused to lead the group. So they all head to the nearest village. Something familiar with the local terrain. Mech approaches and tells them there is a town half a day's walk to the west. Frau pats her head, calling her a good girl for helping everyone. The group heads west and arrives at a village, where all the people are very cautious around them. They try to stay at an inn, but the owner throws them out because he saw that they are traveling with a demi-human. Hulk introduces himself to the man, who immediately recognizes him as the commander of the Rindle Knights, and trusting him, the innkeeper allows them to stay in one of the rooms. Hulk gives Sally money to buy food for them, assuring her that he feels much better after the encouraging conversation they had. However, when Sally leaves the room, he stops being brave and cries like a girl, joking, because men cry too. I cry every day myself. Frau tries to cheer him up, telling him that things will get better with time, and the commander thanks her for the kind words and goes downstairs to fetch water alone. Mech comments that Frau is incredibly close to humans, and that is wrong since she is a demi-human. However, the rabbit tells her that her world completely changed when she met Sally because she showed her care and concern. Frau then invites Mech to join their travels, calling her child because she doesn't know her human name. Mech suggests that Frau give her a human name, so Frau suggests Carrot, and the ex-ogre reluctantly accepts. Meanwhile, Sally walks through the town, thinking about how she will buy food for 4 people. She sits down and reflects on her situation, thinking that she had never considered how deep the prejudice against other species is. While thinking deeply about this, she spots Mikoto and his talking dog companion. They sit together and Sally is thrilled to see the boy again. Mikoto quickly notices her short hair and says that this style suits her. He also observes that she has probably been through a lot during her journey, as her facial expression has changed. She tells him that during her journey, she witnessed how people treat demi-humans with contempt and that no one seems to question it. However, Mikoto's aura changes, and he asks the princess a hypothetical question: if a demi-human killed a human, how does she think the child of that human would feel? Sally thinks the child would be sad at first, but Mikoto interrupts, saying that the child would hate the demi-human who did it and, if they could, would seek revenge by killing all demi-humans. And that is exactly why he will annihilate all monsters without hesitation. With that, Mikoto smiles and says this is all hypothetical, but he adds that people hate demi-humans because they were raised that way. Meanwhile, Swag is watering plants in a church, posing as a priest. An orphan girl proudly shows him the sweets she made and then runs off to other children. However, Soman appears and devours the child. Seeing his companion, Swag warns him about the possibility of going against the princess as she could kill him. But Soman says that's impossible. On the other side of the scene, after their conversation, Sally decides to travel to unite demi-humans and humans, making each species try to understand one another. Mikoto warns her, saying that this is not an easy task. However, the girl simply smiles at him, saying that she can endure a little pain. She invites him to join her on her journey, but he declines as he wants to travel alone. They then promise to exchange stories of their travels if they ever meet again. And then Mikoto leaves. As he walks away, he refuses to look back at the princess, fearing he might accept her offer, so he runs away. Sally returns to the inn and is surprised to see that Hulk has taken in a boy named Barrett, who was once a soldier and survived thanks to the destruction. The boy tells them that the witch from the western forest saved him from the chaos caused by Soman. Upon hearing this, Sally declares that she wants to meet the witch, surprising everyone. That night, Mech meets Swag in the forest, and he offers to turn her back into an ogre, even though she has already lost her horn. However, with the condition that she continues traveling with her current group and reports everything that happens to him. Before parting, Swag tells her she can use her ogre eye to watch over Sally and will eventually see something interesting. The next day, Sally and the others arrive at the witch's house. Sally is surprised to discover that the witch's house is a bar. The witch approaches and introduces herself as Winnie, surprising everyone. Sally asks the witch to teach her magic, and after observing her humanity through her crystal ball, Winnie agrees to teach her. However, there are 3 conditions. First, Sally must keep the teaching a secret. Second, she must obey her at all times, and third, the payment will be 1 million gold coins, which shocks Sally. Given the current situation, Winnie offers to accept whatever amount Sally can pay at the moment, but Hulk points out that since they are traveling, they can't spend any money, and Sally realizes he's right. So, she asks Hulk to teach her how to wield a sword. Later, while the two are practicing, Mech uses her ogre eye on Sally and sees a massive amount of magic within the princess, which surprises her. As it gets late, the group wonders where they will stay. Winnie offers them vacant rooms in her bar for free, as long as they clean them. She then calls Hulk and shows him the power that Sally possesses. Later, Frau enters Winnie's room, revealing that they met 3 years ago, and Winnie mysteriously states that Frau sealed her power and pretended to be ignorant of her past life. She doesn't press the matter, but shows the weapon she prepared for the rabbit, saying she saw Frau using a hammer before. Frau thanks Winnie and asks for another favor to teach Sally how to use the weapon. Out of respect for their friendship, Winnie agrees but says the payment will be 1 million gold coins. Later, she offers to make carrot juice for the rabbit, which puts Frau in a very good mood. The next day, Sally is happy to learn that Winnie finally agreed to teach her magic. To prepare her body, the witch orders the princess to train with Frau first to improve her stamina. Seeing Sally's disappointed face, Winnie reminds her that, as her teacher, Sally must obey her at all times. Determined to learn magic, Sally begins running with Frau. Meanwhile, Mech watches and tells herself that Winnie must have noticed that Sally has immense power but isn't saying anything about it. She wonders what the witch's plan is. Then, Hulk trains with Sally, asking her to go all out against him, assuring her that she can't hurt him. The princess attacks aggressively, but he blocks all her strikes. However, he recalls Sally's fight with Set, so he knows she has hidden power. He continues training, and Sally complains that Hulk is only using one hand against her, but he clarifies that he's only using one hand to train her properly. Watching the two, Winnie recalls Hulk's grandfather and says he raised a very kind grandson. At that moment, an elf riding a lizard arrives, looking for Winnie. They ask her to remove the barrier in the southeastern forest and kill the ogre she sealed in the bar. Winnie asks why they want to repeatedly eliminate a sleeping ogre. The two demons reveal that they are preparing for something, and since the ogre is not yet too strong, this is their chance to burn him. She agrees, but only on the condition that Sally and her group join the extermination team. The next day, Sally and the others are present while Winnie dispels the seal she placed on the ogre. Sally asks the lizard folk why they need to exterminate a sleeping ogre. She receives the response that a kingdom was recently annihilated, so they cannot leave a dangerous ogre alive. Meanwhile, Hulk approaches the leader of the elves and criticizes his decision to send the lizard folk into the depths of the forest, saying they will have little visibility of what happens here. He accuses him of sacrificing the lizard folk, but the leader doesn't listen and sends his elves to fight. Sally tries to intervene, but the elf leader admits that Hulk is right. He doesn't mince words and tells Sally that he planned to abandon the lizard folk and doesn't care if they follow him after the battle with the ogre ends. He claims that the hostility between the races runs deeper than she imagines. At that moment, an ogre named Hatsuk emerges from the seal. She recognizes Mech and pities her for losing all her powers and walking among humans. To help her former companion, Hatsuk offers to end her miserable life, and she says this while smiling, which leaves Sally in disbelief. Hatsuk then tries to attack the princess using her ogre hair, but Frau is quick to protect her. Winnie observes Hatsuk and wonders where she came from, as she is not the sealed ogre. At that moment, an earthquake shakes the depths of the underground and the tall sealed ogre emerges. Duke appears, and Winnie volunteers to buy time for everyone to escape, but Sally refuses the idea. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Suag is the mastermind behind the chaos and sent Hatsuki to stir things up. They then spot Mikoto traveling alone, and Soman approaches the boy because he's hungry. However, to Swag's shock, Mikoto easily kills his partner, revealing that he is not just an ordinary traveling boy but an infamous demon slayer. Meanwhile, the tree ogre wants to kill Winnie for sealing him for so long. Hulk devises a plan to defeat the great ogre, and the plan involves the elves and the lizard folk working together. Even during the war, Sally is happy to see the racial differences put aside to defeat an ogre. However, before the war even begins, Sally announces that everyone should make peace, which surprises everyone. The ogre says that peace is not possible because ogres are born from human hatred and are therefore destined to fight and hate humans. Duke calls her pathetic for even thinking about peace between humans and ogres and says she is delusional. When Frau tries to save Sally, Hatsuki intervenes, saying they should fight. Meanwhile, Mikoto tries to fight Suag, but the ogre mocks him and says Mikoto isn't very civilized for a human. Just as Sally is about to be crushed by the tree monster, she finally activates her peach-colored eyes, saying that she cannot let hatred kill her. She then frees herself from the roots, completely shocking everyone. Winnie approaches her, ensuring that this time she is in control of herself. Seeing her power, Duke points out that if ogres are born from human hatred, then Sally is on the opposite side of the coin and can easily wipe out the others. He says she cannot speak about peace and compromise because her own existence is a threat to everyone else. However, if she wants to make peace, she must first kill herself. Upon hearing this, Sally realizes that there is no other way but to fight. She declares that either Duke chooses to live peacefully, or he dies by her hands. Tired of her nonsense, Hatsuki decides to attack with her hair. Frau tries to stop her, but the princess intervenes. She then breaks Hatsuki's hair, which is known to be as hard as steel. After doing so, she punches Hatsuki in the stomach, causing her to fall to the ground. The tree ogre shifts his attention to Hatsuki, whom he deems weak and having no place in the world, despite being from the same race. He then attacks the young ogre using his roots, but to Hatsuki's surprise, Sally steps in and defends her. Sally declares that she will use her powers against monsters like him, who no longer see reason and are determined to endlessly fight other races. Sally attacks Duke, delivering a single punch that destroys the monster. After using immense power, Sally becomes exhausted, and Winnie congratulates her, thanking her for saving everyone in the forest from destruction. The lizard folk and the elves also express their gratitude to the human girl for saving them from extinction. Sally then falls asleep. After all, she used a lot of a power she doesn't even fully control. At that moment, Hulk notices that Hatsuki is no longer around, and it is revealed that the girl fled into the depths of the forest. That night, Mech sent an ogre eye to check on Suag. However, instead of informing Suag, she asks what his goals are, knowing that he sent Hatsuki to revive Duke. Since Suag is already getting annoyed with her questions, Mech reports how her fight with Duke went. She then learns that Soman had a fight with Mikoto and asks how Suag survived. He responds by saying he managed to negotiate with the ogre hunter, and then he comments to Mech about Sally's great potential. The next day, Sally wakes up and finds Hulk sitting at the bar, talking with the leader of the elves and the lizard folk. She can't believe her plan is coming to fruition, but it is happening. People of various races are interacting before her eyes. Seeing her happiness, Winnie tells her not to forget this feeling, as it will guide her throughout her journey. Later, Sally announces that she needs to continue her journey as soon as possible, as her recent encounters with ogres are no coincidence. She thinks someone is following her to test her abilities, so it will be dangerous to stay in one place for too long. Upon hearing this, Hulk, Frau, and Mech decide to join her journey, which makes Sally happy. She invites Winnie to join them as well, but the witch respectfully declines, saying that instead, she will keep the bar open for them. After saying goodbye to her friends, the group continues their journey. The scene then cuts to a woman walking at night, encountering a terrifying man with sharp fangs. Meanwhile, Hulk tells Sally about a vampire in the neighboring town. He says he was warned by the guard at the checkpoint. Recently, they have been finding corpses in the morning, drained of blood and marked with 2 fang bites on their necks. Fearful, Sally suggests camping outside the town, but Hulk insists there's no reason to worry because the targets are only beautiful women, and she doesn't fit the criteria. After receiving a punch to his face, they move on. Everyone decides to look for an inn first, but they soon notice that everyone is staring at them, those famous looks of disapproval because of their demi-human companion. Reluctantly, they continue walking, and Mech suddenly suggests that Sally teach them a lesson. However, her disappointment with Sally grows as the princess argues that she can't use her powers in such a way. They arrive at an inn but fear they won't be offered a room because of Frau. Frau volunteers to enter later after buying some supplies they might need. Mech decides to accompany her and feels bad about Sally's refusal to hurt the humans. She then promises herself that she will make Sally regret not fighting back against the humans. During the outing, Frau says she wants to buy a hood to disguise herself but gets distracted by a stall selling carrots. Unfortunately, she encounters hostility from the vendor, who throws her change on the ground despite her polite attempt to buy. Mech's heart breaks as she watches her friend silently pick up the coins from the ground. In her room, Hulk expresses his concern for Mech, as she had never experienced such human animosity before. When she witnesses the discrimination her friend faces, Mech cannot accept it well. While Frau cheerfully munches on her snack, Mech wonders what is wrong with the humans in the town. She is shocked to learn that almost all humans act this way, and Frau doesn't retaliate because she has gotten used to it. Frau adds that people like Sally make things much better. However, Mech argues that Sally will always side with the humans in critical moments, reminding Frau that Set died at Sally's hands. As Mech walks away, she overhears the townsfolk disparaging demi-humans, saying they wish to kill them all. At that moment, they talk about the vampire lurking around, which gives Mech an idea. Using her ogre eye, she finds a familiar energy source. Meanwhile, Sally is searching for her friends when, out of nowhere, a vendor offers her an octopus. Triggered by the traumatic memory, her power is suddenly activated. In the ruins of a building, Mech visits the vampire, known as the blood-sucking ogre. As a favor, she asks him to kill the humans in the city, revealing how she lost her power and also sharing her current situation with Sally. Hearing this, the idea of a battle arises. The vampire says he now desires Sally's blood, but Mech warns him that he cannot do that, which leaves him incredulous. Sally is a threat to the ogre species, and therefore she is the one they most need to kill. Mech struggles to agree, but fortunately, Frau arrives and invites Mech to go home. With that, the blood-sucking ogre says he now has business with Frau too. The demi-human then slams her hammer into the ground. The ogre is very slow, but Frau's attacks lack the strength to hurt him. He easily grabs her and reveals his fangs, which were his ogre horns all along. When he sinks them into her neck, Frau is blown apart. Sally arrives just in time to see the entire upper half of her friend's body destroyed. She attacks the enemy, and he is shocked when a single blow from her makes him spit blood. The vampire asks what her power is but gets no response. He tries to control his blood and use it to bind Sally, but it doesn't work, and she is filled with rage over what he just did. The vampire injures himself and spreads his blood over Sally, using it like tight wires to hold her. He shows his fangs again, but Mech sends an explosion his way. Realizing that the old ogre and humans are the same, the vampire decides to kill them both. Meanwhile, we see Frau waking up in a bright realm. There, she meets an angel named Ultra, who tells her they are in heaven and that Frau has already died twice that year. Upon learning that her upper half was destroyed, the angel offers to let her stay in heaven. But Frau refuses, saying her companions are waiting for her. She asks to be revived and adds that she plans to use even more power, not caring about the consequences. After thanking Ultra, she is sent back to the land of the living. Frau's body regenerates, but now she has a sinister-look black wings sprout from her back, and her hands are stained with darkness. The vampire remembers the taste of her blood and says she is not simply a rabbit. He launches his ball of coagulated blood at her, but with a mere wave of her hand, Frau deflects the enemy's power. The vampire cannot even react when she opens a hole in his chest. With that, Frau reaches her limit and loses consciousness. In the end, the vampire ogre doesn't judge Mech for betraying the ogress because he did the same when he fell in love with a human. He married her and lived a life of happiness, so much so that he forgot his true nature. Then, one day when they were about to kiss, his instincts took over, and before he realized it, he had drained her of all her blood. As he falls, he expresses his envy that Mech lost her horns and tells them to take Frau away while it is still night. Seeing Ultra, Frau thinks she has died again, but that's not the case. According to the angel, her friends brought her back and took care of her after the fight. They did all this without worrying about her strange new appearance. With that, to help her fit better into society, Ultra restores the power Frau had been using. The demi-human thanks her friend, grateful for her company. Hulk soon enters, having heard the voices, and when he sees Frau, he is happy to see she has returned to normal. Across the city, Sally and Mech, while buying carrots, begin to argue. When Sally admits she killed Set and refuses to apologize, Mech gets angry. But Sally insists she used her power because it was necessary. At that moment, a vendor tells them not to argue in front of his stall and recognizes them as the ones traveling with the demi-human. He insults demi-humans, calling them beasts worse than cattle. Mech starts to get irritated, but Sally punches the man before Mech can do anything. Meanwhile, Frau's angelic friend is flying high and sees the vampire's spirit wandering the human realm. He asks the angel for a little more time, as he wants to finish watching the people burn his body. After receiving the punch, the vendor says he cannot believe a human is traveling with a demi-human, but he then tells them to leave, terrified by Sally's fiery glare. As they walk away, Mech reflects on Sally's attitude and smiles, finally understanding what kind of person she is. With that, she wonders if people like that vendor could ever truly make peace with demi-humans. Sally responds that while it might not work all the time, punching the vendor allowed her to see her ogre friend's smile. In the end, the vampire watches his body burn completely. He hopes to be reborn as something other than an ogre, but the idea of living as an evil human does not appeal to him. With that, they agree that not all humans are bad. After talking for a bit, his time to leave arrives and his wedding ring falls to the ground. The angel helps him cross over, and he hopes Mech will have a better fate than his. Across the screen, everyone is happy to see Frau has returned to normal and they wonder what she is, but they don't press her for an explanation. Hulk suggests they leave, but carefully, as Sally will likely be investigated for punching the vendor. Frau asks what happened, and Sally says he deserved it. In the end, the ex-knight finds a way to punish Sally for her crime by taking her to jail for one night. We see Mikoto walking through the forest with his dog when he notices a bandit. The boy rushes to attack, but he is surprised to see Milia, whom he strangely identifies as a common nun. Despite her hesitation, he offers her a bowl of food and asks what she is doing in the mountains. Milia reveals that she is suffering from amnesia and only remembers her name. During the night, while Milia was sleeping, Mikoto removes her hood and confirms she is an ogre. He prepares to take her life, but the dog stops him. Mikoto then points his sword at the dog, asking why it sides with the ogres. Curiously, the dog scolds him and insists that he is on Mikoto's side but orders the boy not to stain his name. Mikoto drops the sword and agrees to take the girl to the next village. In the end, he apologizes for pointing his sword at the dog. The next morning, several chicken ogres attack them, but they are no match for Mikoto's strength. However, as they talk about the ogres, several memories start to flood back into Milia's mind. They reach the edge of the forest and prepare to head to the nearby city. At that moment, a half-ogre appears with orders to capture the pathetic fugitive who is clinging to the humans. Seeing him, Mikoto tries to explain that Milia lost her memory. However, when he mentions Duke, Milia's memories return, along with the trauma she endured. She cuts her chest and says she hates the fact that she fell into the hands of a nameless half-ogre. Meanwhile, Mikoto says he finds ogres boring and will simply kill whoever wins the battle. Understanding her desperate situation, Milia tears off her horn, telling Mikoto she is no longer an ogre and asking for his help. She collapses from blood loss and says she doesn't want to die, as she still wants to find Sally, look into her demonic eyes and scold her. Suddenly, she wakes up in a room, fully bandaged but safe. Beside her is the young human who says he spared both of them because she was bleeding, and killing those weak ogres would have been a waste of time. Immediately recognizing the difference in their powers, the ogre didn't hesitate to retreat. Milia thanks Mikoto for saving her and insists on joining him in his travels. He reluctantly agrees, saying he is only doing this because he doesn't want her to die right after he saved her. Milia behaves in a friendly way, even treating Mikoto as her best friend, without realizing it, while all the while denying that Mikoto is actually a man. On the other side of the screen, we see a fight in an arena concluding with Hulk as the victor. He laughs and celebrates, but his companions respond sarcastically, praising him for defeating a weak opponent. Hulk explains that he plans to win the tournament and earn a large sum of money. However, his friends don't even bother to watch and leave, telling him to come back when he's done. All the girls assume he's in it for the money, but Frau points out that it's because he wants to be strong enough to protect others. Meek, having only witnessed human violence, begins to understand their hearts, giving Sally hope that peace between the races might be possible. At that moment, Sally sees Mikoto passing by and runs after him. Despite the late reunion, all Mikoto can offer her is some water, as his funds are depleted from feeding the nun. He can barely afford a place to sleep. He had told the nun to earn money for her own meals, and after saying that, he decided to join the tournament in hopes of winning the prize money. During the night, we see the half-ogre apologizing for failing to capture Milia. Swag reassures him, saying it wasn't his fault and that he simply encountered an enemy he couldn't face. As they talk about how the half-ogre fled at Mikoto's mere glance, a child suddenly approaches and asks the half-ogre to pick her up. The half-ogre would have ignored her, but Soman's head scolds him for being disrespectful. He is then introduced to the girl, who is Giuselino, the god of masks. Immediately, he apologizes and puts her on his shoulders. Together, they walk to a nearby platform, where one of the beautiful masks has drawn a summoning circle. There, they hold a meeting of the 100 ogres. As the ogres emerge from the circle, Swag welcomes them and starts the meeting. Pointing to a map, he shows his former sphere of influence on the continent, and by tearing the page, he reveals their current state, shocking the audience as they see the drastic reduction. An old ogre, sophisticated in appearance, draws everyone's attention by asking if this is due to the boy with the peach eyes. This is confirmed, and everyone is surprised to learn that the enemy of all ogres is just one human. Though many doubt that a single human could be that strong, the old ogre insists it's true, adding that the boy's power surpasses that of any army. Suag lists the names of the great ogres recently killed, warning everyone about their impending extinction. At that moment, Todoro, the ogre of thunder, interrupts. Although he acknowledges Mikoto's power, he argues that fear is being unnecessarily stoked and suggests they all unite. In response, Suag removes Soman's head covering, insisting that fighting in numbers isn't always the answer. Irritated by Todoro's arguments, Suag mentions Meek's name, another ogre slain by the boy with the peach eyes. He says he had wanted to keep the incident secret, as Meek was killed cruelly, and her dignity as an ogre was completely stripped by her enemy. The provocation works well, as Todoro promises to kill the boy himself since he was very fond of Meek. Wrapping up the meeting, everyone wishes him good luck in his fight. After the meeting, we see Suag screaming, feeling humiliated for being used as an example. He asks his mistress to fix him, but instead she takes his life. Giuselino asks if Suag wants to get along with humans but doubts it will truly happen. She says it's not impossible, as one of her friends shared love with a human before. As they prepare to leave, she asks Suag to keep her informed, as she doesn't mind helping him. Observing Suag's work, the half-ogre can't shake the feeling that Suag's plans extend beyond humans and ogres. The next day, Giuselino appears before Hulk, asking for his help, saying she's looking for someone named Suag. They introduce themselves, but Hulk doesn't realize the significance of her title. The girl amuses herself with Hulk and asks if they can be friends. She claims that she gives her friends everything they want. However, upon hearing this, Hulk pats her on the head and teaches her that friendship is built on bonds, and she shouldn't just give everything to anyone. For a moment, the girl releases a sinister aura, feeling uncomfortable after receiving a lecture, but she quickly returns to normal. At that moment, Suag arrives. She runs to him, saying she wants to see the humans since he is so interested in them. He introduces himself as a priest and notices Hulk's swords, understanding that he is participating in the tournament. When everyone inquires about it and says they'll watch, Hulk invites Juscelino to cheer for him. After the girl promises to root for him, they part ways and the ex-commander moves on, completely unaware that the girl he has befriended is responsible for the annihilation of his former kingdom, as she is Soman's master. Afterward, we see Milia excited and ready to win more matches. Mikoto has other things to do and can't cheer for her, but he promises to pray that she won't get hurt. In the arena, Hulk is called for his match, and suddenly he hears Juscelino's loud applause from the stands. Happy, Hulk decides to put on a show for the girl. Meanwhile, Sally is surprised by the noise of the crowd. Suag approaches her, introducing himself as someone who shares her goal of seeking peace between humans and ogres. At that moment, Mikoto arrives and tells Sally to leave, revealing the true identity of the strange man. Considering the situation, Suag admits who he is but adds that his influence and Sally's power could make the dream of coexistence a reality. However, Mikoto's hatred overflows as he refuses to allow that world to materialize. Now, both men extend their hands, wanting to help her achieve her goals, forcing her to make a decision. Before her stands Mikoto, whose path she doesn't want to follow, and an ogre, whose path she shares. Regrets will come no matter what she chooses. Surprisingly, she walks toward her old friend, Mikoto, whom she wants to stop but also wants to be with. To her shock, he steps back and rejects her, saying she cannot choose him. Suag encourages her to pursue her choice and learn more about Mikoto. She catches up to him, and he apologizes for making a foolish offer despite knowing her ideals. When Sally persists, Mikoto glares at her, recalling her earlier question about hating all demi-humans if her parents were killed by one. He says that if that happened, his hatred for them would overflow and he would kill them without hesitation. However, no amount of killing would bring him peace. Sally asks what he would do if she stood between the demi-humans as a defender of coexistence. She is hopeful, thinking Mikoto would back down, but his expression makes his answer clear. At that moment, something explodes on the city walls, and there stands Todoroki, accompanied by Basso, Shink, and Doman the Ogre Eagle. They now fly to scout the area, and a sleeping boy is left outside. The two decide to split up and cause chaos in the arena. The guard informs the participants that the tournament has been cancelled as the ogres are invading. Desperate for help, they offer 500 gold coins to whoever brings the ogre's head. Based on the explosion, Hulk assumes the enemies must be on the same level as Z. Hulk moves forward, trusting his companions to defeat the ogres. On his journey, his old adversary Basso approaches and tries to ally with him. Basso doesn't earn much and wants to make money to feed his family. Upon hearing this, Hulk discourages the man as he knows the dangers the ogres present. Convinced, Basso gives up, but a massive lightning strike hits him, killing him instantly. Todoro appears, saying he intended to hit both of them. Hulk guesses that this boy is an ogre, but he is mistakenly identified as the boy with the peach eyes. Meanwhile, Meek observes what's happening and is shocked by Basso, Shink, and finally Todoro. Sally wonders if Suag was involved in the attack, but he suddenly appears behind her, saying he's hurt by her interference. Toro fires at Hulk, but the experienced soldier raises his sword to attract the lightning. Outside the walls, Mikoto tries to attack Domink while he sleeps, but Domink suddenly becomes conscious. Mikoto's companions do their best to support him, but they all encounter obstacles in one way or another. Suag taunts Sally, seemingly doing it on purpose to make her use her peach eye powers. Back with Hulk, he dodges the lightning and runs, armed with only a wooden sword for defense. Annoyed, Todoro chases after him but is knocked unconscious by a surprise attack. Meanwhile, Shink walks through the streets, feeling sad that everyone looks at him with fear. Meek approaches him and asks why they are attacking the city. Upon seeing her, he laughs and says they are there to avenge her because Todoro was told that the boy with the peach eyes killed them all. Meek asks why Soag would lie about that and why Todoro would want to avenge her so badly. Either way, she realizes she needs to stop Todoro urgently, but Shink won't let that happen and decides to kill her himself. Meanwhile, Hulk's luck runs out when Todoro rises again. He sees Meek's horn on the ground and assumes that the humans must have used a dirty trick to kill her. At the same time, the others begin to be overwhelmed by the ogres and Sally is unable to activate the power in her eye. Todoro uses his cannon and summons Reijin, a being made of pure lightning, ready to go after Frau. On the other side, Shink insists on killing Meek because she is a member of the Coexistence faction, a group led by Suag that seeks the coexistence of ogres and humans. Moreover, she was the first ogre to betray him and go live with the humans. Unable to come to an agreement, they clash, and due to the power difference, the invaders completely crush the humans, leaving them defenseless. Meek can do nothing after losing her powers. Meanwhile, Juscelino and the half-ogre watch Hulk face his death with a confident smile. It's clear that there is no escape for him, but his companions are on their way. His task now is to hold Todoro in place long enough for everyone to arrive. Hulk insists that he will fulfill his duty, regardless of whether they arrive in time or not. Amused by Hulk, Todoro launches a full-force attack, ordering Raijin to strike. After avoiding death so many times, Hulk's time has finally come. He decides to greet death with dignity, thinking of his friends. Suddenly, a woman in a cloak and witch's hat appears and completely blocks the lightning. She tells Hulk that he really has a death wish, but he is shocked to see Winnie. Winnie scolds Hulk for always trying to sacrifice himself, recalling a distant memory. She says it must be the influence of his journey. Todoro, still furious that his attack was blocked, draws her attention. Winnie had no intention of fighting him, she only came to deliver a sword to a friend, rushing after seeing him fighting with a wooden sword. Somehow, Hulk feels life emanating from the blade, and even Juscelino recognizes its power. Its name is Air, the treasure of the sky, which was once wielded by Fral and can essentially cut through anything. Now, everything depends on Hulk's ability to wield it. With that, Hulk's confidence soars. Trusting the witch and his newfound sword skills, he is ready to try and win the battle. Meanwhile, Basso is finishing his fight, but Fral has survived his cannon and gets back up. Since the angel gave her some power, she is still fully capable of fighting. Her eyes turn red and her dark form returns. With a single move, she cuts off the ogre eagle's wing, and with another, she decapitates it. After defeating it, Fral tries to reach her companions but collapses due to overusing her power. On the other side, Suag questions Sally's decision, asking how she plans to protect people with a power she can't control. When she responds that she'll do it anyway, he laughs and surrenders, explaining that he was just testing her. Sally wonders why her eye didn't react, but Suag avoids answering, reminding her that her friend is in trouble. Before leaving, Suag says he will settle things with Mikoto first, and then extend his hand to him in hopes of coexistence. Meanwhile, Hulk is holding his own against Todoro, who incredulously sees the cape of his horn and remembers how Meek gave it to him, allowing him to better control his lightning. Remembering the reason he's there, the power surges within him, and Raijin is summoned once again. On the other side of the screen, Meek flees from Chi's barrage, crossing the city and reaching the protection wall. Risking her life, she dodges a blow, and her enemy, with his hand stuck in the wall, ends up getting punched by her with all her might, losing consciousness. Meanwhile, Chi asks Meek why she seems so down despite defeating the person who tried to kill her. He tells Meek that for her, coexistence with humans is possible, but for him it's impossible. Chi explains that the Ogre of Thunder was the only one who treated him normally and even gave him a name. Ogres with human-like appearances like them could probably coexist, but those with unnatural characteristics would have no place in this new world. Seeing her cry for him, Chi hopes there are more people like her. On the other side, wanting to end everything, Raijin becomes more violent than before. He reminds Hulk to give it his best, and Hulk, doing just that, cuts the lightning beast in half and then slashes its summoner in the chest. Thus, the Ogre of Thunder falls and the battle ends. However, the boy wakes up in an inn, covered in bandages, with Meek by his side. Seeing her, he thinks he must have died, but is relieved to realize she is alive and well. Outside, Hulk admits that he intended to kill the ogre, hating him for having killed an innocent man. However, the boy only attacked them, thinking they had killed Meek. Things could have ended differently if they had had time to clarify everything, but the resentment lingered. Sally, saddened by all her decisions, encourages everyone to find a path without fighting. Swag, amused by her stubborn response, suggests they head to the country of Lydia, the only place in the world that hasn't banned discrimination. Mikoto finally wakes up, still boiling with bloodlust for ogres. His eyes shine when Milia enters the room, but the dog thankfully stops him in time. Milia imagined he would be in a bad mood after being put to sleep by Domin, who forces people near him to sleep and torments them with nightmares. Winnie heads home, promising to check on everyone every day. To everyone's surprise, Sally invites the Ogre of Thunder to join the group, not to travel with them, but to share the goal of coexistence. There are several ogres out there, and Sally believes he is one of the ones worth convincing. Fral clarifies the invitation as a philosophical interpretation, making the ogre question his purpose in life. He looks at Meek, knowing there is tension between the others, but as Suag's coexistence faction gains strength, this tension will only grow. He approaches and rejects Sally's hand, saying he will never work with humans. Although surprised, Meek translates, saying he is simply too embarrassed to shake her hand, but that he does indeed want to share their goal. The boy leaves, telling Meek to stay behind and protect the home she has found. Now, with newfound confidence in humanity, he meets Suag outside and asks why he deceived him, leading to Shink and Basso's deaths. Then, as an apology, Suag sends the boy to join them, opening a hole in his chest. He asks the boy to send his regards to those in the heavens. With that, they all head to Lydia. To end this story, we hear another tale about Mikoto. Once upon a time, there was a man who left his home. He was given food for his journey and a beautiful katana to protect him from the creatures outside. His name was Mikoto. On the road, he gave his food to a dog and was surprised to hear it thank him. He immediately told the dog to calm down, aware of the casual reaction of someone who had just seen a dog talk. Thus, they decided to travel together. Mikoto explained that he was searching for his parents to ask why they placed him in a peach and sent him floating down a river. Suddenly, an ogre appeared in the village where they were, mercilessly devouring the villagers. Despite trembling in fear, Mikoto raised his sword and shouted to stop the beast, stammering and obviously scared. Everyone was shocked when he stopped the ogre's fist with just one hand. He was the first to claim the name Peach Boy, the boy from the peach, with great power. He quickly sliced the ogre in half, and upon realizing he had killed it, power shone in his eyes. Everyone ran to thank him, and rumors quickly spread. Soon, everyone who had been terrorized by ogres sought out this traveler to ask for help. The attack of Mikoto on the ogres continued, eliminating each one that appeared in his path, completely forgetting his mission to find his parents. During his journey, he set off for the island of the ogres, hoping to finally end his mission by killing their leader. Additionally, in exchange for a meal, the dog chose to accompany him throughout the process. Mikoto fulfilled his mission, defeating the leader and forcing them all to leave. However, he was warned that without them, the Kishin would come. Now, considered a hero, he settled in the mountains, worried about the warning of the ogre leader and obviously not wanting to involve anyone in his wars. He made excuses not to see those who raised him and now felt lonely inside. One night, an ogre came to him on his knees. The ogre had fallen in love and formed a family with a human, but his instincts dominated him, and he devoured his wife. That same ogre was worried that his son would be the next victim. He begged the Peach Boy to take his life, as he was sure his son would be left with good people. Thus, the ogre died. However, one day in the village, the Peach Boy came across people violently beating a child. In defense, he told everyone to stop, but they were filled with hatred because the child was an ogre, just like the monsters who had massacred their families. Since no negotiation worked, Mikoto decided to take the child under his protection. It was on that day that he met Mikoto. In his home, the child asked him to end his life, already tired of suffering. At that moment, Mikoto revealed that he was the one who killed the boy's father, giving him a reason to live revenge. Filled with hatred for the loss of his father, the boy tried to attack with the intention of killing him, but he was too weak to do anything. So Mikoto told him to become strong enough to kill him. Until that day came, he would be under his care. Later, Mikoto told the dog that he had no intention of sharing how the boy's father had begged to be killed. Filled with compassion, he thought about what the child had gone through and insisted that he must live with someone to hate, so as not to lose his reason for existence. Mikoto whispered everything, but the boy overheard, pretending to be asleep. From that point on, he taught the child to read, hunt, and though he wasn't good at it, to make fire. Their relationship grew closer, but the child still refused to say his name. So Mikoto offered his own, and the boy was baptized as Mikoto. Both found happiness in one another, but that did not last long. One night, one of the Kishin arrived. The boy had come of age and received another chance to avenge his father. After refusing, the boy fled. The dog asked about his actions, but Mikoto's eyes gleamed with power, sensing that the Kishin was approaching. He finally found Mikoto, who said he wanted to stay there forever, but was encouraged to go on a journey and find people who would accept him as he was. He promised to accompany him, but recognized that this decision would be difficult. They made a promise whenever things got tough, Mikoto should overcome them with a smile, and thus the man would come to protect him. One night, Mikoto suddenly felt a familiar sensation, similar to when his father disappeared. As he ran, the dog blocked his path and told him to turn back, but he didn't. The signs of a great battle appeared, and Mikoto found his master lying on the ground, his limbs torn off. When the Kishin approached, Mikoto delivered one final blow and almost managed to hit the Kishin. Inches from death, he saw the moon in the shape of a dumpling and asked why Mikoto had come to him. The child was in shock and cried. With a weak smile, Mikoto taught one last lesson about the journey the boy was about to undertake. Understanding his fear, he reminded him of his promise to protect him. As such, he left his sword so that Mikoto could protect himself and others. A peach-colored light emerged from Mikoto's body and entered the boy. At that moment, a huge explosion from the Kishin hit. However, the boy calmly walked up to Nabur, dragging the blade, completely composed. Strengthened by his master's blade, Mikoto's horn grew much larger, and he instantly cut off the enemy's hand. He slashed the Kishin and ripped off its horn. Thus, Mikoto decided he would end the battle between ogres and humans by simply killing all of them. Outside of the flashback, we see Milia carrying a sleeping Mikoto on her back. and the dog says that he will always have a hole in his heart until the day he finds a person with whom he can share a genuine smile. Thus ends the first season.